Everybody that watches this wants this amazing exit. And they want this euphoria of generational wealth. But what they don't know is how stinking hard it is.
There isn't a founder or a manager or someone who really cares about the company work or who's not sleepless nights, working 6-7 days a week, worrying constantly about their family.
What's your aha moment from that? What's your takeaway from that?
It's just been in my blood to believe where this industry could and should go. And so I've never given up on it. And I've always tried to get better at it.
Oh my gosh. Like, to actually run this like an adult company is very expensive. Welcome to the Acquirable Podcast, where we talk about 4 pillars that make your company irresistible. When you have your financials, your efficiencies, your culture, and your scale dialed in, you build a company that has maximum exit value and you're irresistible. Each week, we sit and talk to another founder who is building an incredibly irresistible company. And today, we're with Brian from Cart Mart.
Got it.
Cart Mart. Man, we're glad you're here, brother. Thanks for making time with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so we always start off the conversation like this. Everybody that watches this wants this amazing exit. And they want this euphoria of generational wealth, yachts, never have to work again. And that's the picture that they see. But what they don't know is how stinking hard it is. And all the sleepless nights. In fact, you just said you're running on, 3 hours of sleep? So for some reason, something kept you up last night, whether it was travel or the business or whatever. But talk to us a little bit about not the glory of building an irresistible company, but talk to us a little bit about some of the moments or times in your life where like, this is hard. This is really hard and scary.
Loaded question. First of all, 3 hours of sleep for me is a little less than normal, but my wife is working on the less. She's the real worker in the house.
Is that right?
Get that out.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. We'll send that clip to you to send to her.
Yeah. I love you, honey. No, I've been in my industry now for almost 38 years, starting it as a much younger, as a kid coming into the family business. But there are more times in my life when I hit that wall thinking like, this is it. This is the day that I'm making, the last payroll that I could possibly make, or the time when I'm gonna lose my biggest customer, or what I perceived at the time was my most important or best employee walked out the door for one reason or another. There are like countless of those moments where you're just completely just hit that point where there's no way to how you can keep going, right? You see all these successes, potentially at the stage of the company now, but the years of building a business, there isn't a founder or a manager or someone who really cares about the company work or who's not sleepless nights, working 6-7 days a week, worrying constantly about their family or their business family. And that's just the life of a responsible business owner and manager either.
Tell us about a time where you did hit that wall. Tell us about a time that was fragile and scary, and kind of walk us through that and how you got through that and what you learned from that.
Yeah. Well, one comes to mind. We were going through the Great Recession. It was probably 2011 or 12, and I was just, trying to grow the business, wanting to scale up, and we hadn't even opened up a second location. At the time, we were only the one single store in San Diego, and we're looking at the next financing, employees worried about their jobs. So they would come in super scared and fragile. And then customers worried about losing their homes right at the time. And it was just a total mess. I was young, totally unexperienced for this. And I thought maybe this could be the end of the business because I had no experience to manage this. This is the thing like you would expect your father or the guy above me, but I didn't have that luxury because I wasn't working with my father. I didn't have anyone in that mindset. So
Nobody to bail you out.
no one to bail me out except my own brain and my own team, right? So I had to really learn that it was going to be up to more of like a rally the troops and forget about what's going on the outside. And so we brought everybody together and said, look, we're not going to No one's losing their job because of the economy. I have to write the check out of my own pocket to keep the payroll going. I'm going to do that, and we're going to keep building it. We're going to open another we're going to open our first store. And then from there, we're going to go to another one, and another one. And, well, we were able to do that. So I thought I was hit the wall and thought I was going to be done. And, I just pulled deep into the, wherever you pull from,
Deep somewhere.
somewhere, I know, again, I'm 20 something years old. Well, then I was a bit old, but anyways, I was young.
Yeah.
And I was really inexperienced. I still am.
What's your aha moment from that? What's your takeaway from that?
Never give up. Never give up. I mean, when you believe you have a purpose, and when you believe in what you do and the people that you work with, the products that you are promoting. I mean, I've always believed in this industry. It started with my grandfather and his belief in it. He actually worked for one of the founders of the industry. So it's just been in my blood to believe where this industry could and should go. And so I've never given up on it, and I've always tried to get better at it. Where it's hard because I don't have playbooks. I can't. There are companies bigger, better than us, who are more successful than us. So I have to be like the responsible one to kind of create that level and bring people along with me.
I think the statement at get better at it. I think a lot of times when crisis comes in, we shrink. Our like rat brain takes over, and that fear of the world's falling apart, and we become the survival version of ourselves and not the thriving version of ourselves. And I do think that a lot of folks don't get better in crisis. They spin in crisis. And I think it's a great reminder for folks in their company, like, you're going to have a lot of unknowns. And I was talking to some guys I was doing some coaching with, and they had lost their biggest customer, and they called me in a mess. And one of the guys, they were recanting the conversation they were having the night before. And one of the partners said to the other partner, "Hey, no one's coming to bail us out. No one's coming for us. There's no Calvary. We have got to solve this." And I think getting in that moment of get better as a leader, get better as a business owner, get better as a champion, is such just a great reminder. And speaking of getting better, we do talk about these 4 pillars that we just know are fundamentally true, that when your company is ran efficiently, when your finances in order, we have a culture like what you talked about of like, okay, I can't call dad, so now I got to call all the folks in and say, we have a culture here that we're believing in, and then scale how a company scales. So every time we sit with folks, we kind of walk through these 4 areas that we know are super important. So Josh, you want to take us?
Yeah, let's go through efficiencies. What you've learned there.
So what I realized coming into the business at such a young age, I'm such an old business. We just passed 65 years of business in 2024. So although established business, professional business, we're basically running like a 65-year-old startup, right? So we consistently have to look at what we're doing as we get more people or more locations out of state, out of country now. We're working in Mexico, so we're international. So we've learned so much about building processes and obviously the team around that. But we're forever students of our own business, trying to understand how can we like fix this. Now, it wasn't always like that. I have to say, like the last 10 years, it's been like, just do it like old school, like just pound through and push through. Yeah, get a door open and just like, come on. And then, there was a lot of collateral damage in both customers, people, and, cash, all of the above. But again, we didn't have a roadmap to follow of anyone else's. So I just went, and that becomes it's mission critical when you have your people around you building those processes. So the procedural type stuff and just efficiencies in the business, cutting out where you can and putting your people behind it is where we're spending time and money right now, more than we've ever spent. The 7 figures in the last 12 months just to improve so much of our efficiency.
Interesting. Yeah.
And how we operate.
One of our teammates has this great rule of thumb that anytime you 3x the size of something in the business, number of customers, number of transactions, number of headcount, revenue, something like that, you have to completely change the business, right? His thesis is that the process and the way you do things breaks by the time you get to 3x. from where you started there? And it sounds like you've been going through that.
Yeah, I mean, at Cart Mart in the last, just take 10 years, we've 5x the company in 10 years. And every time, we're doing it without the help of, people until we realize we hit there. We're like, wait a second, holy shit, we need like a proper financial reporting system. We need budgets. We didn't even have budgets, 5 years ago. We were just like, I went.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the finances. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
like, we just went with the mindset of sales cures all ailments.
Yes. It cures a lot of ailments.
Yeah.
It is not.
It creates a lot of ill.
It ain't creates a lot of new ones.
And animosity too inside of this is too. So we scaled it back, but we organize it and plan for it way better than we ever did, and that's why we're so much more calm when we have to talk about our financial performance or our growth performance with our suppliers, or even the banks that we work with. If they're concerned about what's going on, we know we have an answer for it that we can stand behind. It's generally related to timing in our industry, just like anybody's sure. So
Going back just to the efficiencies, you said you invested 7 figures in efficiencies. For folks listening, what are some of those investments that you made that may be beneficial to them to think about?
for starters, we hired our first CTO.
Okay.
Okay, so that was a big investment in people. Something that I decided back in 2015 that in order for me to really take this business, maybe not even further, but just to keep the business going at the time, because it was so overwhelming in 2015 for me. Having opened at that point, that was our third store in 2015. I knew that I would need a proper team, so I decided to put like half of whatever we made in the business into people.
Okay.
Paying them better, providing better benefits, 401ks, and formalizing that process. But the investment recently has been in building our management team, both in operations and finance and technology, which is going to obviously be and should be for most businesses nowadays a major focus. But for hard to do when you're a like $1 to $5 or $5 to $10 million company, to put any emphasis or cash into technology is almost like I don't know where to go with that, because it's such a big investment.
Right. I remember the first time I'd built my first company to a place where everybody's it's always fun when because I've started 4 companies, and the second one I started, we had gotten to that place where enough people were there and we were starting to make ground, and all of a sudden it was like, hey, this we're all in this together. It's over. They're like, we're all in a little, and it was like, we want 401k packages and all these things. I'm like, yeah, for sure. And we ran the numbers and they brought them to me, and I looked at what it was going to cost to provide benefits and retirement to the employees. And I was like, oh my gosh, like to actually run this like an adult company is very expensive.
Yeah.
It was chalky.
Especially for a small or lower middle market or middle market business, that stuff is actually world-class expensive. But we were just in an all-day diligence meeting yesterday with a company, our client being acquired by a huge company, they're probably 100 times the size. And we just talked through the difference in the per person health benefits. And it was just a fraction of the cost for the bigger company.
Yeah.
Right.
And a major cost for the small.
And a huge cost, and a per person, like almost, I don't remember the numbers, but it was a multiple more for the small company per person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, certainly in making those investments in benefits, but in the tech side, if nothing else, it's is really all about, utilizing agentic AI, utilizing the best of our dealer management system that we've invested in 14, 15 years ago to expand. That's our ERP is considered the management system in the business. So we've spent a lot of time, energy, and money putting people around making the experience better for the customer, of course, primarily, and then obviously for our internal users, which are 150 plus employees and the suppliers that we work. Sure. So we feel like if we're like an easy company to work with, you'll want to work here,
right?
Or you'll want to shop here, and you'll probably stay here.
Yeah.
And so that's where the investments really have to go, at least in my mind for the future and the health of Cart Mart moving forward.
You mentioned it, agentic AI, and that's like been not surprisingly, a huge topic of conversation in these sit downs. What are you guys
And right,
So everyone's talking about.
saying it's the latest of the latest, right? So
Yeah, what are you guys using it?
we're using AI for many different focuses right now, mainly in the customer experience. So we're trying to take a customer instead of, and admittedly we have a very antiquated system when you call in, right? We call in and you go to a voice system, right? And now with 10 locations, it's gotten to be so convoluted that the experience with the customer is terrible because they want to talk to sales, but they really just want to talk to sales in Nathan, South Carolina,
Right.
or Cabo San Lucas, or wherever. They don't want to talk to sales wherever. It's
When you call and it says, you go through the list and you're at 10 locations, we try to get to that last one. Like if you're calling for Cabo, well, I'm San Diego, I know too. Like I got to wait all the way to 10 to get to South Carolina for Pete's sake. Yeah.
So we're trying to change the experience using conversational AI experience that you would probably know if you were really listening to the tone, or asking the same question 10 times. They would probably eventually get back to the same way they answered it. But at the experiences with the customer, right? And then we're trying to use it. We're trying to use it to obviously predict trends in our business, whether it be for purchasing patterns or market studies in certain areas of the markets that we're currently in. Maybe we're missing, maybe we're missing something in Corona, California. Sure. Maybe we're missing something out of that business in Nashville, Tennessee. I don't know. So we're really just trying to, and of course it's new and vogue in our investments in it are fairly new to say that it's worked, but that's where we're putting our money. We're going get the used car version of technology for today. We've decided to put in, and let's step up and let's get a new car, right? Maybe it's not a Ferrari of technology, but for sure a solid F-150. That's going to get us to maybe to our next phase when we need to step that up. So that's kind of how I've always operated. I'm very scrappy. And it started back when I was, in college, just being scrappy and hustling just to go. But we run our business in that way too. We're very mindful about how we spend and where we spend. And but I don't, there'll be probably people who wouldn't agree with this, but I think we really put our best foot forward with the employees and investing in them, whether it be benefits or whatnot, and all those things you talked about. It's a big expense, and but it shouldn't hurt, right? I mean, if I heard the bottom line, what it shouldn't hurt or here, right? And for that, I know that at least we're doing okay with that.
That's cool. We'll get to culture here in a minute, but any other thoughts on finances as we kind of think about just?
Yeah, tell us. So you've been doing a lot of add-on acquisitions, and we'll talk about those later. Tell us from a different perspective, not the Cart Mart perspective in-house, but rather looking at acquisitions. What are you seeing out there amongst these smaller businesses that you're buying up? Practices that should be left behind are very resistible, and then things that you're seeing people do that make them irresistible from a financial reporting standpoint.
Well, so the industry that I'm in, this golf car low speed vehicle industry, as old as it is, it's still very much evolving. In the last 5 years, there has been went from about 1,500 dealers known in the industry, authorized dealers, like the car dealership, to over 3,500. Okay, right. So it's just exploded. Most of those additional 2,000 dealers are somewhere between 1 and 5 million, and those are all very capable, gung ho, startups trying to participate in this low speed vehicle craze, which is obviously growing.
So electric have a lot to do with that?
It's not so much the electric. I mean, the reason, and that's a total side story, but the reason why these cars blew up so much is, electric's been cool since 1901. It's been in play. Detroit.
You heard it first here. 1901. It's been cool.
Detroit Electric. They built the first. You don't wind me up on the history of the industry, but it goes way back. And electric vehicles have a lot bigger and longer history than people realize. But I'd say electric carts or golf cart types that obviously coming from the late 50s, and that's when they've been going. But the growth in it has been in the last, say, 5 years in the consumer space, and over 2,000 new dealers coming into the space. So a lot of these people may or may not have had experience. So what we see is that they're running businesses on kind of weak or antiquated systems. Maybe they're just running it off of like a QuickBooks. Some are doing it off of Excel. Some aren't even doing it. You're right. They're just like to get cash or they get slips, and who knows where they're going to be. But the industry is open to a lot of newcomers who are well run, and that's kind of what we're looking for. Are those companies who take it serious? A professionally run business is very hard to find when you have more of a founder mentality. I'm sure you talk about that, but we like to say we're founder managed, family managed, but professionally. Right.
So what is the difference? Give us some examples for folks listening of like, hey, these are some good indicators that you're running this like a founder mindset. And this is some good indicators that you're running this like an enterprise mindset. And because that's going to be, as you're out there looking for acquisitions, when you look at the financials of a company, I'm sure you're evaluating with kind of more complex than what I just said, but in the most simple terms, all right, that one's kind of family ran.
You're trying to decide where you're at on that spectrum. You feel that.
Well, we get to know the family. I mean, we get to know the businesses. So when we talk about family run, are they truly like, is it dad, the wife, son, daughter, and is it truly family, like only blood? That's an indicator of opportunity to either look deeper as you realize there's going to be a lot of business practices that are going to be favoring the family from a tax perspective. And that's okay too, right? That's a choice you make. But as you get into businesses that are more seriously professionally run, that are trying to show, maybe they have bank loans, they have their covenants, they have to adhere to the minimum standards of the manufacturers or the banks that lend to the manufacturers. You start to weed through and find people who are running a business well, and that's what we're looking for when we're looking, is like, what systems are you running? How do you even have a dealer management system or an ERP? And big thing for us is, what are your benefits? If there aren't any, then you realize you're coming in, if you add huge value to the employees, or you could be walking into a storm because these people have been underpaid or supported for too long, and maybe they just don't want to participate in the next role or so. In the finance side of it, we just got to look for well-run businesses that care about their people and care about their customers. We know what the target margins need to be in order for us to look closer, but if they're not hitting on the culture and the systems piece, it's a no-go.
Just curious, are the manufacturers in your business like auto brands where they'll provide kind of floor plan loans, lot loans, things like that? Or do you have to go get that elsewhere from a third party?
The manufacturers all work with banks to put the products on your floor. They'll loan the dealers X amount of dollars for inventory acquisition so that they can purchase it, put it on the floor, and sell it. But there's no financing available from the manufacturers to do acquisitions or to even help the business outside of what you would get from an external. They're not interested in helping. They just want to sell you cars. Understandably, that's what most manufacturers do.
Yeah. So when you talk about these smaller businesses that you look at as add-ons, and there may be some level of discipline from their manufacturers or their banks, it's probably because of that, because they're borrowing to get the product on the floor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It really, it becomes, and because there is a lot of turnover in our industry with people with good intentions, start a business, borrow a bunch of money from a lender to buy cars, open a store on a busy street or highway. And then they realize that it's far more complicated of a business than just selling, this to a client. There's service, there's support, there's parts and rentals and all this stuff. Like really, it's a far more complex business. with a higher barrier to entry than people realize if you're going to stay and be good. Like when you can, this is 2,000 people got in and started great little companies, and some of those companies are now great big companies,
Right, sure.
which is amazing. And I love that. We admire and respect that. But a lot of them do struggle because they're just kind of in that smaller mindset. They can get bigger loans to get bigger, and they also can't sell through their current problems right now to come through.
Let's talk a little about culture. It's funny when I sold my first company, we had a very strong. Every business that when they're young and they're in their early stage of culture is vital, because you're not able to pay what some of the big firms are able to pay. You're not able to give all the benefits, and our offsite would look like going to Chili's, not going to Cabo. And so it was kind of like, but I remember before we sold our first company, the founder or the CEO of this company, that they had raised a lot, and they're really big, and we were a roll up for them, and they came in and said, "How in the world had you been paying these people this much money, this little money, and getting this much outcome out of them?" And we thought we were paying them pretty good, and that's all I had. It was like, man, I'm paying them everything I can, and the culture was there and the energy was there. Of course, when they came in, all of our employees were excited because they were like, "Oh my gosh, we're gonna actually make real money, get real packages, all these different things." But how do you look at culture as a denomination, for lack of a better term, or a value that says, I might not be able to give you all these things. Maybe as you've gone through that, I might not be able to give you all these things, but I can give you this. Describe culture, and I can give you this, like what you brought to your company.
So it's all based off of character, right? So we really believe in, hire on character and train their skills. So when you find someone who's earnest about wanting to participate in the vision and work hard and contribute, treat others fairly, we really believe in the golden rule: do unto others as you would want done unto you. And that's a really big, part of our culture, is taking care of our people internally and obviously the external. So it's really hard to find those people, but it's hard to find and keep them. But
and it's hard to, I think something you said that's really important is somebody who's earnest about the vision. There's a lot of people that get earnest about the opportunity, or they get earnest about what they think is their perceived opportunity.
Be earnest about the vision, genuinely interested, genuinely want to participate. Pardon my net.
Yeah, we've even in our early stage, and of course throughout I found a lot of people that you sit down with them, and I'm more of a passionate, expressive person, and they're going, "Oh my gosh, like I'll take the hill with you."
yeah,
And it's like 3-6 months later, all of a sudden this whole other character comes out of this person that you're like, where was that? Like, because you weren't really earnest about the business.
yeah. Well, we've always had those. Every business has hired someone, and it's like, you're not the person that I hired. What happened, right? So, I've had, unfortunately, I had, countless of those moments in my life, but that's just not being I'm not a professional recruiter. I'm not a professional, even manager. I didn't go to school for that. So I really have built a team around truly connecting with people, trusting those people, and really just kind of giving them the keys to the business and the tools, and getting out of their way. It's a piece of what I think has been successful. Building a culture, that's a whole complicated. When you're as small as, let's say, we are, it's one thing to do when you have one great office and the founder's there, and this all the leadership is there, and everyone's coming into one office. But that doesn't work that way for me. I've got 10 locations. People are all over, and each of these locations requires a very high character
and a different culture. The culture in Cabo is going to be different than South Carolina is going to be different than Scottsdale. They're just different cities, different. So you have to have this through line that can also penetrate downline.
Yeah. As you, and we're not a franchise, but it's considered like when you have like these other outlets or franchise stores that we have, you find the people for that area, and they become the company in that market. So we're really blessed to have great people in each market, and without that, I can promise you we wouldn't be even looking at the next deal. Yeah, in fact, we'll pull back until we fix something, and then we can go forward. And so really super hard to keep the entire company aligned, because we're all like in totally different parts of the country, and now Mexico too. Yeah, that too. So it's a lot of bebopping around trying to make sure that people are happy, that they are okay, and that we're providing the right things that they need, like whether it be resources, tools, compensation, benefits, and obviously vision enough for them to say, I'm going to get up tomorrow when Brian's gone, right? I'm going to do the same thing that I'm going to go run through a wall for that.
We all know.
I was just going to say something I love about your story that I think is important for our listeners is like the different routes to vision and the different routes to culture that supports that vision. And for you, something I've always known in our conversations that I love is, and it came out a little bit earlier, I think at the depth of your passion for what you're doing is like you love electric motors, you love low speed vehicles and what's become this like really rapidly growing low speed vehicle market. And you have a vision for that whole market, and you become, because of your positions in the industry, kind of a father figure in that industry. And that's a vision that people get excited about and latch on to. It's not necessarily like an excitement sitting down with a person about like, we're going to get fired up and we're going to go run up this hill, but there's just like a quiet passion that comes out. You said, don't wind me up earlier. And like, I've seen you get wound up about electric vehicles. And, I think it's just interesting. It's something I identify with. The stuff I do is something I feel like I've been thinking of since I was like 13 years old. And for me, that's where the passion comes from. Like, I love what I do and I love the industry, and I sense that from you too.
Yeah, it would. I mean, I don't think anyone's successful unless they're really passionate about the industry. I mean, we talk about it, like, I'm not really a golfer, right? I'm a worker, right? So my mind isn't living in this space, but my grandfather had a vision to move the game of golf faster, so he put together in his garage, with another guy, a little caddy cart to move people, and it took off. And now it's like my passion says, like, I can do better than that. You started it. Like, this is a founder's conversation, but I'm not really a founder, but I kind of operate like one, because there was a generational gap in my business. My grandfather and then me. There was no father, uncles, aunts, cousins in the business. It was just him and I. So it was kind of like when I finally took over, I assumed this founder position, even though I didn't start the company, right? That's obviously, it was 65 years old plus. But we have to keep running it. Like we're constantly the steward of the industry. And I think people want to be in this industry because it's fascinating in a lot of ways. I mean, we're not my company, but the industry, the brands that we represent are building products that help move people and stuff with electric vehicles, reduce carbon emissions, reduce, traffic congestion. Exactly. It just helps people. There's really like nothing bad about what these little electric vehicles can do for a business or a family. I mean, for your own family, it might solve a problem of taking the garbage cans out, but maybe for your family, you're getting the kids to school with the card. But almost 100% of the time, whoever's behind the wheels has got a little smile on the back of their head, so automatically you're selling fun, and that's a nice thing to be a part of. Like, I would rather, be in that than be in, the diaper business, I guess.
I took
or, morbid or something.
I took my boys to our club the other day, and I said, you can each bring a friend, and they're 15 and 13, and you have to be 16 at the public courses to be able to drive a golf cart. Fortunately, we weren't at, we were the public, it was private, and so we pulled up there, and they said, Dad, are you gonna drive? And I'm like, no, like, you boys are each gonna drive a cart, I'll get my own. What, really? And my 14-year-old was just, or 13, I guess, he's fired up, dude. And so they're just driving these carts around, smiling ear to ear, having so much fun. And it is a really fun thing. But let's talk about scale, because in some ways, it kind of helps that you're not a crazy golf enthusiast, because the fact of the matter is the majority of your products are being sold outside of the golf industry.
That's right.
And talk to us a little bit about how you begin to see that. And I think this is where scale bumps, where people, as they kind of look at their product and their customer in a very binary way, and you realize, man, there are whole customer sets out there I haven't even thought about. So talk to us a little bit about that evolution, how that benefited your scale.
Well, it's kind of funny going back, and when I was young, meeting people, I'd meet a girl in a bar, and she'd say, "Well, what do you do?" I'd say, "Well, I sell golf carts," and she would be like, "Oh, yeah, be right back." Well, please, you know, and that went on until I met my wife. True story. And she said, "What do you do for a living?" I said, "Well, I sell golf carts." And she goes, "Well, that's interesting. Someone's got to do that." Oh no, yeah. And that became like this interesting person that was finally like, "Tell me more about what your business is." And when I would explain it to her, like I would explain it to you or anyone, it's like, the golf cart kind of started this moving people around a golf course with your bag on the back. But the evolution of how these vehicles are put into different use cases, like for commercial customers, hotels, resorts, airport, zoos, stadiums, cemeteries, right? So this goes on. Everywhere you go, you see some form that it may not be a golf cart but it could have a utility bed on the back. It could carry 6, 8, 12 people, right? And you see the different use cases. It's like, well, are these really golf carts? And the answer is no, but sort of like the lamest terms, golf carts. But the industry has evolved, and I'm largely one of the few who are promoting the concept and the term of low-speed vehicles, because that's really what this falls under. Vehicles that drive under 35 miles per hour, that are meant to move people or stuff.
Yep.
And so the industry, as we speak, it's tug of war. It's a low-speed vehicle. Is it a golf cart? Is it a golf car? Is it a NFE, PTB? I mean, I could tell you there's like 20 different acronyms for what is it.
Yeah.
But I put my foot down because, again, someone's got to do it. The first guy in the room's got to basically establish the tone. And so we're established that this is the low-speed vehicle industry. We created the Low-Speed Vehicle Dealer Association. And now more and more people are becoming attuned to what low-speed vehicles are. They're not just golf carts anymore. Like your grandfather's golf cart or my grandfather's golf car, they're true purpose-built, electric powered and gas, by the way. There's the two vehicles to move people in. Actually, miss the gas power ones. Well, you can get them if you live out of California.
There you go, exactly.
I was doing a few years ago a deal that was like an electromechanical service company, and I had just never really thought about it, but I thought of you during this conversation. Like one of the huge end uses was in mining, because in a shaft you can't have emissions, right? So they had low speed vehicles, golf carts, utility vehicles, wherever we call them. We'll call them low speed vehicles the rest of the time. But they also had like huge, dump truck type tractors that were running in there on electric motors, because you can have emissions. Same goes like inside a hotel, inside a conference center.
Great example. My family comes from Arizona, and there was a lot of connection to mining copper, right? So back in the day, one of our largest customers at the time was Phelps Dodge. They used to build these small, weird looking 3-wheel electric vehicles that we were building and selling that were like almost no steering wheel, almost like laying down while transporting a guy down into the shaft, into the mine. That's how they would get these people down into these things. With a trailer system, they could pull 12,000 pounds of stuff out of the hole, and that's how they would do it. And still today, they use these types of vehicles in mining. But you just keep thinking about it. Solar farms. The opportunity. Yeah, there's lots of use case applications, and yet most people think it's a cool vehicle running around the neighborhood taking his kids to school, or the ones that you see at the country club taking you, to your next hole. That's just a fraction of the business, and that's a piece that we're not even really all that excited about. Sometimes we really look at the use of moving the people, communities, and the stock for the business.
I think that's the takeaway on that I button up on scale before we kind of finish off and talk about acquisitions and how that looks, is that you got to look at your business as I think I'm going to say two things. One, which we to talk about use cases, like what are the other use cases of my product or service? And I think this is really important too. Like, change your vernacular on the way you think about it, because I think so often when you change the way you speak, you change the way you see. And I think so often we keep speaking the same thing, so we keep seeing the same thing. But when you change the way you speak, you change the way you see. And I think that's so important in companies. If you keep defining your products or services in the same way, you're going to see the same thing. But when you begin to change your nomenclature and look at it different, you're going to see more things. Let's talk a little bit about just add-on acquisitions as we're running out of time, Ernie.
Yeah, tell us just about what you've done to date, add-on acquisitions, and then walk us through like criteria, how you think about it, and what the future looks like.
Yeah, so add-on acquisitions is obviously a big piece of our roadmap for growth, and it's how we're going to get to our, the point of our business where we know that we've really, did what we came to do. So we have a long way to go on that. So, but we've had, at least 4 acquisitions over the last 5 to 6 years. We've opened a new store almost every year, or had an acquisition that came with a store or two that we, rehab and added into our portfolio of stores. In my space, we're really looking for opportunities where the founder or the family, they really want to grow the business, but they've hit a wall. They don't have the systems, the processes, the tools to keep employees and customers. They might have a really great market. Pick a market.
They don't have the efficiencies, financials, culture, and scale.
Or they don't. And which is totally normal and respectable. And we can come in and we can help people with those, and we do. And so those that we find it's really important. There's a character connection with the management team, and that they're going to stay on. Like, we're out looking to buy business and just send in our people and take over. That's like the last thing I want to do. We want to find a group of people like, hey, we can help you grow, and you can stay on, and maybe you can even reinvest in the business and be a bigger part of this. And someday when we do decide to eventually exit this business, you'll have a second bite at the apple. So we're bringing people along with us. And I believe that that's hard to find in this industry, where I mentioned earlier, most of them are, 3 to 5 year old companies, but there's still 1,500 of the old guys in that room that actually have built really wonderful businesses across the country and beyond that actually could also use the help. And so that's what we are looking for. And I have, of course, been in this business longer than most. I built great friendships, relationships, and I help my colleagues with their businesses. And maybe it eventually opens up a conversation. It's like, how do I take this to the next level? And would you be a part of it? And that's what we're doing. That's what we're looking for. It makes this whole process of add-ons, acquisition, makes it so much sweeter for all sides. It's never like Cart Mart's coming in to acquire you, I throw you out. And I don't even want to use the term acquisitions. I almost prefer to use the term merger, because while we are acquiring the 100%, or in most cases, majority of the business, we still think of them as our new friends and family. So then we're kind of like, merging together.
Yep.
But it's really more like, get on my back and we'll go to the next stage together, in whether who owns it. It's
Right. We're all in this together.
Yeah,
we're in it together too.
yeah, and it stays a distinct store in a market, in a distinct market too.
With the same people. If they're the right people, that's the idea, is that it stays, so customers don't feel it.
So we always kind of finish out with this thought. If you were going to speak to the audience and say, hey folks, if you're listening to this, when I think about what makes a company irresistible, you're obviously buying companies. So you've got this kind of, that's irresistible to me. That's resistible to me. What makes a company irresistible?
When you have great people. Because unless you are buying for strategic reasons and you have some not nefarious reason, I'm gonna buy this and wipe that out, and people don't matter, which is not the case in this business or this industry. But so it's the people, and that's what I believe makes a business irresistible. I mean, what we sell isn't really changing anyone's life. I mean, we sell the best of the best of the best products. So obviously that's important that you are aligned with the good products, and you provide good value to your customers, and you can articulate that to buyer or to a financial sponsor. But, when you run all of those things through good people, then that becomes an irresistible business. And that's what we look for. That's what we endeavor to be. We aspire to be irresistible. And I think that's always a work in progress there for any good, responsible, leader. So
It's such a through line of almost every conversation we have. What makes it irresistible? People. Culture.
Yeah.
It's like I can solve a lot of problems out there. The hardest problem to solve on the planet is people.
Yeah.
It's like
You said we had Gary Ridge on WD-40, and he said, "You boys have a great framework you've come up with, but you made one mistake. It's just about culture," or something like that. Sing to the affects what he said.
Yeah. And he's the legendary CEO, right? And people followed him, and I'm still young and humble, and I think one day, as I tell my wife, I hope there's if I do everything right and people follow me, whenever there'll be a parking problem at my funeral, and that's really what I'm trying to do. And in the meantime, sell a few ball carts here and there.
Well, there may be a parking problem, but there's going to be a whole lot of low-speed vehicles rolling in there. Just I celebrate you.
Our relative division will just prepare it all as don't worry, everyone's invited.
Exactly.
It was shuttle service. Yeah.
Well, Brian, thank you so much just for spending your morning with us, man. We appreciate you, and I just can't say enough. I think if folks out there can listen, can really see their business differently, they're going to speak about their business differently, and that's where big opportunity comes, and building efficiencies, financials, culture, and scale. So we appreciate your time, brother. Great to meet you, and can't wait to see where you go.
That's great. A lot of fun. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Brian.
I appreciate you.
Amazing. Good job. Easy breezy. Too easy.
Piece of cake, right?
That was fun.
With a picture.
No mess ups.
Pardon? Oh.